Hello and welcome to That Was the News That Was. Not a frequent podcast like the regular Thursday one, but this is always one where it's something of news interest, and I feel it is of news interest. And I feel we're talking about Mr. Rishi Sunak, our dear Chancellor. In the last few days, it's I think the word is a mess. But let me review this for you, as I understand it. If I'm wrong, please correct me. First came out that Mr. Sunak's wife, who is an Indian citizen, and India do not allow dual nationality, which is an interesting little fact, was not paying any tax as such. Excuse me. Since then, she's now said she will start paying UK tax. There's number one. Number two, with Mrs. Sunak, I use that term, is she had £90 million invested in a Russian company. Well, everybody was told to take their money out and not have any of that sort supporting a Russian investment company. And that includes some very big companies have closed down their operations. She did not. Now, on her behalf, I will say it might be she can't. Maybe there's something in there that she can't withdraw that money. Maybe what he put as money is what they call fictitious money. It's just the amount. She's put the actual amount in, but to get it out. So I will say on her behalf, but still, these sort of things mount up, don't they? Then we had that Mr. Sunak, until I think last year, had a green card. A green card means that you can work and live in the United States. And after holding one for 3 to 5 years, you can actually apply to live there. Wow, that's good, isn't it? It's quite difficult for a normal person to get, but Mr. Sunak was working in the States before he became an MP. Why didn't he give it up when he became an MP? That's the question. Now he holds the position of one of the most powerful positions in the country. Yeah, he still had it until last year sometime. And yet, you'd think you'd realise, after all, Mr. Sunak is the one who holds the country's purse strings, so to speak, and also is the deciding factor as such on their taxations and everything. Although he gets advisors, of course. One man cannot do that sort of job, I imagine. The thing is that we realise that Mr. Sunak, now we're facing a time of, I will call, deprivation. The energy bill's just gone up, and so I'm sure some of you are aware, maybe not all of you are, in September they're going to go up again. Mr. Sunak could have capped the energy companies, but he did not. That's number one. Since leaving Brexit, what wasn't told us we can get money put into the health service. What wasn't told to us is that certain food items which we import will make our food bills go up. So there's number two, the cost of living is going up. The only thing he did in his spring statement is announce 5p duty. First he announced, of course, 5p duty of fuel. And I've read that the fuel companies are not passing it on. Well, he could look into that. Maybe make an additional charge to the fuel company so their 5p becomes nothing. He's also promised that in 2024, there'll be tax deductions, but in 2024, there'll be a general election. And all parties do this. When a general election comes around, all of a sudden money that wasn't there appears. Oh my God, hold on a minute, I found this in my pocket. That 5 pence, I'm going to give it to everybody. I know that might sound facetious, but it is. Mr. Sunak might have been acting complete honesty. I will not judge on his behaviour. But now he's asked the Prime Minister's independent ethics advisor to look into it and to make a decision. That is Lord Yates. I hope I pronounced it correctly. He has lands in Scotland. He was, for 10 years, the personal secretary to our Queen. And he's held a few positions over the years. But, bit of history about Mr. Yates. When the question was how did Mr. Johnson get the money to refurbish the flat, he looked into it, as he did. I don't know how far his investigations go. He believed every word that Mr. Johnson said. And then a little bit later, the newspapers came out with a completely different tale. And to quote one person who's in the House of Lords, he's a shadow of the man he was and looks rather pathetic. But my question about the Prime Minister's personal ethics advisor, and we know how Mr. Johnson listens to people. Look at how he was listening to the health advisors during the early days of COVID when they were saying, let's have a lockdown. He would say no. Another prime example is before Mr. Gates came, the other gentleman's advisor looked into the Home Secretary's behaviour to her staff. He gave Mr. Johnson a few suggestions. Mr. Johnson ignored it. So, isn't this rather set up? It's like at the moment we have Partygate going on. It's still going on. Mrs. Gray, I believe she's a Mrs., put her report in which she actually said it starts with leadership. The leadership is Mr. Johnson, if I'm correct. But they did say the police. The police have announced now there are 20 people being fined. Their names will not be revealed. Why? Well, maybe Mr. Johnson's one of those names. Remember one thing, he, at the beginning of Partygate, denied it even happened. Then he said he walked in, he didn't realise it was a party. And then we see pictures of him with his wife sitting in the garden, and there's in the back there are several people around the table. None of them wearing much, but there's food. They're taking the food. And yet Mr. Johnson said that's a picture of a meeting. Well, Mr. Johnson, the question for you is, how long's your wife been part of the government? Why is she there? No, that wasn't a meeting. That was a garden party. So let's go back to Mr. Sunak. How can we trust what's going to happen? I think the government's starting to lose the trust of the people. It should have lost it, in my opinion, a while ago. So what can we do? I don't know. That's the truth. We must now wait for Lord Gate to give his pronunciation. And as I told you, he believed everybody. And personally, why a Prime Minister's independent advisor on ethics? That does not make sense to me. Surely, the logical thing would be the House of Parliament to have some sort of investigation department or ethics of members of Parliament. That could also include there are rules for ministers. Mr. Sunak has broken them. I think we're soon going to see a change. What do you think? That's the main thing. Not me, I'm just one person. So that's a few sharing points about this particular disaster. And I call it a disaster. Of course, the Labour Party are jumping on it with glee. They jumped on it with Partygate. Nothing happened. But it's quite interesting at the moment. We are ruled by a company, a party, not a company. Well, I suppose political people, companies. And to quote Mr. Sunak at both the budget speech and the spring speech, the Conservative Party are the party of the people. Well, unfortunately, they're not. They're the party of the people who have something. If you look at quite a few of the people, ministers are millionaires. Even Mr. Johnson somehow managed to earn £4 million before Partygate. While we're in COVID, while he's supposed to be ruling the country. A lot of them probably do. Mr. Johnson has been very loyal to people who have been found to be doing wrong. He said, I'm not going to ask them to resign. If you remember the fellow who was taking money for lobbying. No, he doesn't have to go. He had to go. The only person that seems to be invulnerable in all these disasters is Mr. Johnson. I know my feeling about this. And I think Mr. Sunak would see him going. He seems a good fellow. But this what gets me, I will say again, is independent ethics advisor who happens to be associated with the Prime Minister. That to me is not an independent whatever, although Lawgate is not affiliated to any party. So that's this short cast. What do you think? Please make comments. If you feel it's interesting, please share. Please subscribe. It will help me, get a few people. There will be every week a podcast and sometimes two when I have news items to talk about or something special. And let me know what you think. Thank you. I wish you a good day and see you soon.